Alright, so here we are. I don't know how much time elapsed because I forgot to start my stopwatch. But anyway, let's say it's been maybe 10-12 minutes. You can see that it's starting to look almost like a drawing. This particular fruit here was quite off. I was just looking at, probably quite off even now. There's this part here, this line. You have to follow this particular line. How does it go? What's the shape? So if you divide with any sort of vertical thing, just this particular shape alone, like this, and you look just for this curve here, does it look on the drawing like it looks on the object? And for me it did not, and I think it still doesn't look properly, but that's not a problem. We will hit it with another cloth and just keep going. So basically this is how you draw, and the more stuff we add, the more charcoal we add on the paper, the more gray tones there will be after we hit it with the cloth. Now, once we have enough gray things happening on the paper, things get interesting because you can start to use the eraser. Is this properly? Alright, you can start to use the eraser as it should be used for drawing out light. Now, I haven't prepared all that much for doing this tutorial, so I have light coming from two sides, which is not optimal. Light should be coming from one side, and then we can represent the shadows and the light really good and really well, and the objects will look three-dimensional. If you have light coming from where you're drawing, so from behind you, or if you're working from a photograph with a flash, that will flatten objects. So if you do a drawing starting from there, that, your drawing will look flat. If you have light like I have here, windows from both sides, this will also look flat because you can't have too much shadow where you need to have it. Of course, we could say in our drawing, let's just take this or this as a light source and put shadows everywhere else, but it's not optimal either. Anyway, let's look at what we can actually see on the drawing, and let's take out the lights. So we've hit it with a cloth, we've blurred everything, we've blurred all the lines. Now the next thing, after the cloth, we need to hit it with an eraser, and for that we need to draw the light out of the object, and we just look and we see where on the spheres things are happening. Now we can start to assume that at least the large shapes on this drawing are constructed correctly, most of them, or at least we got the ballpark idea right some of the time. And one thing that I notice about these lines of the net on the bag, haven't drawn anything like that before. We should notice that in the shadow areas, like here for instance, the net is lighter than the background, whereas here the net will be darker. So we'll have to, in order to create a net here for instance, we'll have to hit it with a set of, with a layer of charcoal, and then take the lines of the net out like this with an eraser. And then it will start to look somewhat like a net, but I don't know if you can see this on the camera. So yeah, we just do this stuff, more value correction, what's light, what's dark. At some point these will start to look like oranges in fruit, but not yet. Especially the lighting from two sides is, I would say, quite a problem. Good thing about this eraser is that you can squeeze it to a point or a blade-like shape, and then start to get some really nice tight lines. And yeah, from here we keep going, and the idea is that the more you do these cycles of measuring, constructing, and observing where to put the light and shadow, the better your drawing will look. Don't overwork it. When it's done, when you feel like you've got little else to add, just stop it, call it a day, and move on to something else to draw. If this were an actual drawing, not a tutorial, I would probably pick up a piece of pastel, dry pastel, black, and just use it the same way I've used this this charcoal. So I can use pastel from this point on because I'm fairly certain that I got my construction right. I know that if this needs to be white, even if I touched it with charcoal before, that's okay, that I can erase most of that. But if I do lines that are incorrect with the pastel, then that's very, very hard to erase. So yeah, I don't know if I should finish this whole drawing. I hope you got enough info to start something like this on your own. And I recommend against doing people of all sorts. The progression that we've been led through in class was this. Simple objects like, one moment, some sort of table with this sort of cylinder, glasses, bottles, just very easy, simple geometrical shapes. Then from there you can move on to more complex organic things, but still not people. We took, for instance, horse skulls. They're long, they don't look like a person, and you still have to train your eye to notice the differences in color, in shades of gray and so on. Then you move on to some clay, those white casts of Greek statues, and then once you're pretty masterful with those, you can move to people. So do not start with people, it will just ruin your day. Try to do a few of these. Fruits, just still life, simple, but do spend more time on it. Spend maybe 6 hours on a large drawing like this, 9 hours, 2-3 days, so on. Right, a few things to consider. I think I'll do this now. How we draw. We need to make long lines on the shape. So if this is an apple, we need to make one line like this. One line, single line. We don't do these broken, sort of squiggly junk lines that people start to do when they start drawing. We work our hands to make these sort of lines, and it's okay if you don't get it right in the first attempt. You can sort of feel it. It doesn't have to be very, very thick of a line, but at some point you need to move on to making these long lines on the edge of the shape. And this charcoal thing, it's fairly thick, but it does create thin lines if you know how to use it. So you hold it by the end, not by the tip like a pencil. Definitely don't hold it like this, like you were to write with it. So it's like this, and you spin it in your fingers like this as you draw. As you draw a line, if you do this, you'll be able to draw some pretty thin construction lines, and it looks as thin as a pencil, although it's several times thicker. There's a training to start. Before you even start drawing, you take a bunch of paper like this, only larger, or wrapping paper, newspapers, anything, and you start to draw junk on it. By junk I mean this. You start to make lines. I don't know if I should destroy this drawing. You start to make lines, large lines, okay? Large on all the paper. The larger the better. And the point is to learn to make different kinds of lines. So make them squiggly, make them straight, make them curvy, but on a large curve. Make spheres, make spirals, make everything you want. The point is, the more varied your lines get, the better. The more kinds of lines you learn to make, the better. I think I'll do a tutorial about that as well, a different one on a different paper. But the point is just train your hand to move freely on large motions, on large movements, on the paper and unlock your shoulders so that it moves freely to do this sort of lines. Because as people start to draw, they're sort of timid and shy and they don't know what to do, and they make these short lines that look like you don't want them to look. So start with the crappy lines, start with the sketches, do something, any sort of drawing, and get some critique from the many forums online, or send me some private messages with some images of your work, and we will talk about it. Ask for any sort of tutorial that I might do next, and I will do it if I know how, or try to point you in the right direction if I don't. Leave comments, critique, give me ideas, just leave your thoughts, subscribe, and so on and so forth. This is Kalin with my first tutorial. Peace out.